Hello, everybody, and thanks for watching again. This is the Ketogenic Fasting Project number 18, ketone bodies. What are they, and how do we measure them? This is probably a video I should have done a long time ago, but I noticed a couple of my online pals were asking about this, and most recently, Ashley was kind of wondering about how this process works, and I remember it being difficult uh, figuring it all out when I first started too. So, anyways, here we go. Ketone bodies. Well, if you remember, most of us grew up eating a high uh, carbohydrate diet. Our body primarily was fueled by carbohydrates, and when you go get on a ketogenic diet, the idea is that you're switching from a carbohydrate-based fuel system to a fat-based system, and there's a number of advantages to that. So when you eat the fat, or the fat's released from your fat cells, it's broken down into constituent components, or it's converted into fuel units that are known as ketone bodies, and that's those ketone bodies go out in the body and are used to generate ATP, which is the basic energy unit in the body. So essentially it goes into the cell and is made into ATP by mitochondria for the most part. And mitochondria are little organelles inside the cells, which, historically were bacteria that we assimilated, or we have a symbiotic relationship with, as it were, but are really kind of indistinguishable from part of human physiology or any mammal physiology, probably almost anything alive, really. So the two primary ketone bodies that we talk about, or that we can measure, are beta hydroxybutyrate and acetone. And beta hydroxybutyrate is kind of the benchmark, or the most studied, the most referenced, because you can measure it in the blood very accurately with a little meter. And then acetone can be measured in the urine and the breath. Now, eventually, when you've been in a state of ketosis for a long period of time, your body uh, won't uh, won't pass acetone in your urine anymore. It's going to get conserved as fuel. Somehow it still winds up in the lungs. And it sounds crazy because, we all think of acetone, or a lot of us think of acetone as a solvent, something we might degrease something with or clean up paint with, or girls use it to wipe their fingernail polish off with, but it's actually a constituent of body fat. um, the the urine in the beginning is probably the thing that most people measure, because the test strips are relatively inexpensive. The process is pretty simple. You pee on a little strip, there's a little colored pad on there, and it changes the color, and you compare it to the bottle. Blood is pretty straightforward, especially if you're used to using blood sugar meters or glucose meters, but it's more expensive. The meter is not expensive; it's like $20 or maybe less. But the strips are generally about $2 a piece. Although there's more brands coming out, so the price will probably eventually go down. And then measuring the breath is a newer thing, and it's difficult to correlate the three. That's part of the problem. The urine often disappears after a while and you can't measure it. Blood is the benchmark, and breath can be a lot more convenient, but you can't just say, oh, I'm measuring this much of my breath, and that means there's X amount in my blood. So it's kind of a burgeoning technology, really, with the breath. This is a typical bottle of ketone urine test strips. I think this one is actually from Smack Fat. I kind of like Smack Fat because Smack Fat is I like the guy who owns the brand. He does YouTube videos, and he sells these online. I think you can get them at Amazon and eBay or other places. And I just like the fact that the guy makes videos. He's very personal, and I think he helps a lot of people. He brought a product to market. He explains how to use it, and so I often buy his brand when I want to get some. Of course, I don't really use them anymore, but I kind of don't really measure it in my urine anymore. So, but I like to support them. So here you can see there's a test strip there that shows a score of approximately 4 millimolars, which a millimolar is just a unit, and everything you measure is going to be in different units, and really all you got to know is what your goal is. And 4 millimolars is right in the middle. You could see some of those test strips that I tested before. They're like, some of them are up there. They're 8 or higher maybe. So I get in state of ketosis sometimes where I've got some rocket ketones. And I think that generally happens when your ketone production is high, but you aren't really active yet that day, and so they're accumulating in your blood, just waiting for you to burn them off. So anything, from the urine standpoint, probably from 1.5 to 8 plus, you're probably in a state of ketosis, but not necessarily on the low end. And that's the thing. It's individualized. We don't really know for sure. This is the meter I use. Unfortunately, I'm out of test strips right now. This is the Precision Extra. This is really common in the United States. I believe in the UK and Australia, there's a different name for it. And I'll try and cover that in the next video. And I think there's also a new brand out, which maybe I can buy one of those and compare it to, because these meters can measure both blood ketones or beta hydroxybutyrate and blood sugar, but you got to have two different strips, and the strips for these units are expensive by comparison. So a lot of times people will just buy the ketone test strips for this unit and then use an entirely different unit to test their blood glucose, because it's going to save you money in the long run. This is a blood glucose meter, and as you can see there, my blood glucose is 72. These things are pretty handy because they record the dates and everything, but you can see the little test strip sticking out there at the left end. So I've used that object up there, the black cylinder at the top where you see the 7 on it. That it is a spring-loaded device with like a needle-like device they call a lance, and you cock it and you fire it into your finger, and you get some blood. Sometimes you have to massage your finger to get a drop of blood, and then you use that little paper strip sticking out there. You soak up the blood, and it fills up that little red rectangle there. And you do the same procedure for measuring ketones, and then you get a number on the screen like you can see here. So I think testing blood glucose is a very powerful tool, and when you got to have low blood sugar typically to have high ketones, unless you're taking ketone supplements or what they call exogenous ketones or ketone salts or ketone esters, which is something I really haven't gotten into because I've been interested more as a dietary standpoint. I'm not a super athlete that needs an incredible amount of fuel, so I'm kind of at that lower end of the spectrum as far as a ketone user, but you will hear about athletes who use both carbohydrates and fat to fuel themselves, especially for competition. But that's a little outside my realm of experience. This here is the Ketonics unit. It's not, as you can see, it has a USB cable, and you plug this sucker in. You plug it into your PC or your Apple, computer, and then it has a screen like this over here, and it's measuring acetone in your breath. So like I said, this device is newer. It's not quite as much known about it. It is convenient because you spend $200 on this thing and you don't have to buy any test strips for it. So, but at the same time, you got to breathe and you have to have a disciplined breath. You have to breathe a consistent way in order to get a consistent score. And if you've had any mouthwash or you drank an alcoholic beverage, it's going to throw it off. So perhaps it's not quite perfected yet, but there is a convenience to it and a cost savings advantage. And I think the product keeps getting better. This is kind of the second version. They might even have a newer version out yet. So, anyways, it's a good company. I believe they're out of Scandinavia. I wish I could remember, but like Sweden or Denmark or something like that. So, anyways, it's good science, and it's just a little young yet. So, hopefully soon we'll have tests like this that are real convenient and don't cost us $2 a test strip, because you figure this thing pays for itself by the time you've done a couple hundred tests, which, especially in the beginning, like there's plenty of days when I tested my ketones multiple times a day. So when you're spending $2 a test or more, that adds up quick. So again, I'd like to thank everybody for watching the video. For hopefully you subscribe to my YouTube channel, and hopefully this helps somebody. And I'm sure I'll be revisiting this topic soon. And Ashley, I hope this helps clear things up for you. All right, thanks, guys.